Welcome to this week's episode of the Inside Kingston podcast, where experienced professionals, entrepreneurs, and community leaders based in Kingston upon Thames are invited on to share their story with us. I'm your host, Amyr Rocha-Lima.
This week's episode of the Inside Kingston podcast is brought to you by Holland Hahn Wills, a financial planning and wealth management firm based in Kingston upon Thames. Holland Hahn Wills specialises in retirement planning for senior professionals and successful business owners. Visit hhw-uk.com to start feeling more relaxed and confident about your financial future.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Inside Kingston podcast. I'm joined today by Emma Peries. Emma is the founder of Digital Mother, a firm that helps mums in business nurture, develop, and grow their social media channels. What's unique about Emma is how she's leveraged her experience in broadcast journalism and pivoted towards social media marketing just as the medium was getting started, which gives her an amazing insight into what works and what doesn't. And be sure to listen to the end, where Emma shares with us some tips on how to get started with a social media strategy for your business. So whether you're interested in knowing more about social media marketing, or would like to know more about what it takes to run a successful independent business, then I hope you enjoy this episode of the Inside Kingston podcast. Welcome, Emma Peries, to the Inside Kingston podcast. Emma, I'm really excited about this conversation because as a partner in a small business, I know only too well the importance of having a solid social media strategy. And I think that our listeners can learn a lot from your expertise in this area. But to kick off this conversation, I'd like to go back in time, if that's okay. So where did you grow up?
Well, thank you so much for having me. I grew up in Devon, in a lovely seaside town called Exmouth, 2 miles of glorious golden sand. Real sort of small town holiday destination, but I'm lucky that all my family and a lot of my friends are still there. So it's really a second home. So Kingston is now where I'm based and where my children will grow up. But Devon is definitely close to heart still.
Oh, that sounds fantastic. And did you go to university? And if so, what did you study?
I didn't actually go to university in the traditional sense. I was actually in the travel business to begin with. I did a YTS, if anyone can remember that, in the travel industry at London Poly, because I really wanted to travel, but I was too scared to put a bag on my back and go on my own. So I actually became a holiday rep. And I worked I worked in Spain, Mallorca, and later on in Sri Lanka, which was absolutely incredible. So I always say that was my university of life, really. But I always knew I wanted to work in television. I'd actually done journalism at 16 when you want to do your work experience, but hadn't really, went to work at the local paper, just didn't grasp me, still had that travel sort of bug, wanted to do that and loved doing that as well. But just wanted to do that for a couple of years and realised that, if this is a career, you need to obviously live out here for a long time. It's a very different life. It depends what you want. And I'm very close to my family, so I did really want to come home. So, and that TV thing was still burning in the back of my mind. So I came back home after a couple of years and I thought, right, I'm 22 now. I kind of feel like it's a bit too late to go to uni. And I landed on my feet. As soon as I got back, I got a job as a runner in a TV production company down in Plymouth. So I went back home, lived with my parents, did this job down in Plymouth. And actually, while I was there, some of the girls that I was working with were studying at Falmouth University, sort of an on-the-job training scheme. So the guy that ran the course at Falmouth used to come up and, mark their work and chat to them and that sort of thing. And Dennis Gartside was the guy I talked to. I can remember it. I do not remember much in my life. I can really remember this. He just came in and said, I just really wanted to chat to you because I'm really keen in doing a broadcast journalism course with you guys, but I haven't done a degree. How would I go about doing a postgrad with you? Would I have to start at the beginning? And he literally grilled me then and there. I chatted to him for about an hour in the office, sort of like a real on the hoof job interview, and he just said, look, if you want to come down in September, I'll give you a place on my postgrad course, which, because I think I had life experience and I also had job experience. I'd been working, as a runner and a researcher in a TV production company. He just saw that I had, the life skills, I guess, to go in and do the postgrad. So I was really lucky to just go down to Falmouth College of Art and do a postgraduate in broadcast journalism for the year, which is set off my early career.
That sounds amazing, Emma. And could you tell us a little about your career journey before setting up your business?
Yeah, so the broadcast journalism was the way I went. I absolutely loved it. I wanted to be on screen. I wanted to report the news, and I started off on the radio down in Falmouth as a broadcast journalist, reading the news on Pirate FM. I then went up to Reading because a lot of my friends were kind of in this area, in the Reading area at the time, and I got my first job with a radio station which no longer exists, 210 FM, and then I was headhunted Reading 107, which was going to be a brand new radio station, as head of news. So I literally went and launched the news of that radio station, which was just a fantastic experience. Set up the whole news structure and my team, and that was great. And I did that for a few years, and then went down to Meridian and became an on-screen TV reporter. And I worked then for ITV for good sort of 15 to 20 years. And I think, as with lots of women, especially mums my age, you just get to a certain point in your career. I had 2 very small children. I was working night shifts at National ITV at Good Morning Britain, and it just became impossible to work night shifts, to be a mum, to just do everything. And then my husband and I split up as well, so that added an extra dimension. I just thought, I cannot do night shifts anymore as a single parent. And I'd always been interested in social media on a personal level. So exciting to be there at the beginning. I can remember working at Meridian when we all got heard of Facebook and we all logged on and got our own accounts. And then as a journalist, that became integral in what we were doing as journalists, almost more so than what you were doing on the TV. We had to be writing for online and, promoting things on social. So, as soon as it began, really, I was using it. And I just thought my skills so naturally transfer to social media as a content perspective, video, all that, and writing. So I then studied with digital mums and took the plunge to leave my job and set up my own business.
That's fantastic, Emma. And there's quite a few things there in that journey that I want to unpack for our listeners throughout this conversation. But just before I do so, bring us up to the present then. Could you tell us a little bit about your business today?
Yeah. So I retrained about 3 years ago, and I did take my time, because to me it was a really different mindset to working for yourself. I've always been employed, and actually I found that was the biggest hurdle, and it's still a challenge now. But so I did take quite a long time in sort of deciding what I wanted to do, finding sort of different niches, and actually I'm kind of always looking and always moving. So I've had a couple of clients where I started just in social media management, using the skills that I'd learnt. So I would basically write social media strategies for them, and then literally take on their social media for them and run it. Take the job out of their hands and run it for them. And then more recently, last year, I became a trainer. So I actually trained to be able to train people in social media. And actually, this is what I absolutely love now. I still have basis of clients. I've actually just taken on a new LinkedIn client, because I think it's really important for me to keep my hand in on a day-to-day management, because things just change all the time. So it is a complete, I'm training all the time, to be honest. But so now I have the tools to be able to train other people. And I love working with other small businesses and people like me, either on a one-to-one level or a group level, because it's so empowering to see people that don't have a budget to, give me the job of running things for them and want to get their head around it and want to, the passion is theirs, their business is their baby. So they want to be able to do it themselves. So for me to actually be able to give somebody the skill to then run their own social media channels successfully is actually what I'm absolutely loving at the moment. So that's the direction that my business is going in now.
And in sort of preparing for this conversation, Emma, I saw that you run a number of local workshops on different facets of using social media. So could you give us an example of a workshop you run and what people can expect to get out of it?
Sure. So I think what people mainly want to hear is, I think it's really difficult for people it's one of those things that if you don't know what you need, you don't know it. So as much as we have talked about social media strategy, people don't really understand what that means necessarily. And so might not book onto a workshop for social media strategy because they just don't understand what's coming. But actually it's so, so important. So your social media strategy, and one of the workshops I'm going to be doing soon is really honing in and getting to know your audience. It's, the most important thing. It's so learning about your customer, prioritizing your platforms. So, which platform should I be on? Lots of people just go, oh, I'm going to go on Instagram because I've got a product, or it's the easiest one. I know how to work Instagram, so I'm going to go on that. But actually, are you thinking about your target market? Are your target market on that channel? So, prioritize which platforms you go on. And for a small business, you can't be doing 3 or 4 platforms properly. So to put your effort into 1 or 2 is actually so much better. So, I'd help people find which platforms that they should be on. And also it's about being a sociable brand. So lots of people, actually, you fall into 2 brackets with this. You can either be a complete narcissist where all you talk about is yourself and you promote your products. And of course, that's why you're on social media, to promote your brand and to promote your product. But your brand is not just your product. And actually, nobody likes a narcissist. You wouldn't go to a party and start being friends with a person that just talks about themselves and just sells their product. So on your social media channels, you need to be adding value to people. And I have a system which I teach in one of the workshops where you learn what your sociable brand is. And everybody's sociable brand is unique to them. So it's a pie chart system, but we basically work around a pie chart looking at what your business is and what your customer is, and we make a sociable brand for you out of that. And then that leads into another workshop, which I would go into succeeding on whichever platform you want to be on. So if your customers are then, you've learned from that, your customers are on Instagram, then I can do a workshop on being a success on Instagram and how that looks to you.
I like the way you've positioned that, Emma, because there's parallels with what I do in my profession. A lot of people come to us and approach us because they want to invest their money. But in reality, the first thing they should be doing is actually building their financial plan and seeing where there are any gaps in their plan, to then decide whether they should perhaps take out more life assurance before they invest or create a buffer fund before they invest. And I only use that because it seems like it's a very similar parallel in your world, where a lot of folks might say, well, I'm just going to start using Instagram. But there's a massive difference between using social media and doing social media marketing, which is what you're alluding to, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And that's one of my favourite quotes, actually, from the leader at Digital Mums, and one I use in quite a lot of my sort of speeches when I'm around Kingston. So some people will have probably heard me say it. It is, if you don't have a social media strategy, you're just doing social media like your kids are. Just anyone can go on social media. Anybody can use it perfectly well. We all know how to post. We all know, how to search for somebody. But unless you have a strategy built around your business and about your audience, know, how to optimize each channel properly, you're not going to be able to use it successfully. And hopefully that's where I come in.
Absolutely. So Emma, just building on that for a second, and especially given the fact that you've seen the development of social media as a marketing channel throughout your career as well, what are some of the common mistakes you see small businesses making in their social media strategy?
Well, just to go back on a point actually where I don't think I finished what I was saying earlier is there's a twofold thing, and this is probably it, is not having a sociable brand. So the one side of it is being narcissistic and just talking about yourself, but actually lots of people fall into the other category, which is they don't sell their product. So because I think it's more often than not, you're too scared to talk about yourself, or your product so well, or your service, particularly with a service based industry. Your service inside out, but nobody else necessarily does. And so then it's not talking about it enough, or not giving people a real insight into what you do within your business. So actually that's a real common mistake, is what are you selling? What are you doing? How do you appeal to what problems are you solving in your business? So actually, I find that more so than being narcissistic, people will just have an Instagram page, for example, and be posting some lovely stuff, but it's a bit like, what are you actually selling? Where are you going for this? Is this just a personal page, or is it a brand? So yeah, it's just getting that balance right. And we have a good formula for sort of getting that balance right and having an all-round sociable brand.
Yeah, that's a great point. And the flip side of that, Emma, what would be some of your top tips for our listeners who are thinking of creating a social media strategy for their business?
Yeah, so first of all, and I think a lot of people that you would talk to, not just in social media, but if you've got a business coach or if you're going into sales, you need to know your ideal client. And you don't just need to know. So you cannot sell something to everybody. It's just impossible. And I've struggled with this, and I think people would like to hear that. It's taken me a long time to go, well, I can appeal to anyone because I can. But actually, you need to know who you're talking to. So you really, really need to niche down. And you're not actually you're not making your audience smaller. You're actually making it bigger by focusing on exactly who they are. Instead of switching people off, you're just going to grab the attention of that member of the audience. So first of all is definitely know who your audience are. And, with my help or a business coach help, or however you get there, it's not just about saying they're a man or a woman and they're between 40 and 60. It's really, it's giving them a name, it's giving them an age, where do they live, what do they do, what do they work as, when are they on social media, what are their likes and dislikes, what are their pain points. And actually I get a lot out of why they wouldn't engage with you on social media. So then you can take that negative and turn it into a positive and address those points and hopefully appeal to them. So yeah, audience is definitely one, and the sociable brand thing is massive. It's just you've got to appeal to people and add value to people. Everyone likes something for nothing, and the more tips you can give, the more free stuff you can kind of give out in a generic kind of way, you are going to get on the side of those customers. It's like when we network, you need that you trust, know and like strategy, and that's exactly what you're doing on social media. People are getting to know you, hopefully they like you, and then they start to trust you by all the things that you're letting out about your brand. It doesn't need to be personal. I know some people don't want to share personal stuff on social media, and that's fine. You just find a way of doing it with your content in a different sociable way.
Those are great tips, Emma. Thank you for that. Emma, I know so far we've talked about the work you do with small businesses, but could you also tell us a little bit about the work you're doing with charities and helping charities to become better and more efficient sociable brands?
Yeah, sure. So last year I did an amazing couple of days training with the Environment Trust, who are based in St. Margaret's. I think, again, similar to the small businesses, I get a lot of joy out of seeing people trained up so they can actually use it for themselves. Obviously, a charity doesn't have a great budget for getting people to run their own social media channels. But sometimes they might get a grant from somewhere that they could use for their social media training. And it was fabulous. I went in for a day, did like in-house training. I worked with the CEO, first of all, to do the strategy, find out who their audience is. And then with the whole team, the CEO allocated sort of different jobs to different people. One was going to look after LinkedIn, one was going to look after Facebook, and one was going to look after, a couple of people on Twitter. So actually I trained them on being a success in all the platforms. And, we went through the whole thing in a day, and I did kind of like 6 hours training on one day and a couple of hours on the next day. And people just soaked it in and really, really came on board with it. And, now I see them and I help them on LinkedIn by sharing their posts. And it's great to see that they've really taken it on board. I'm hoping to be able to help a few more charities in that sense, to go in and train them as a group.
That's fantastic. Emma, what are some of the key business lessons you've learned throughout your life?
I mean, it's been a real challenge for me, completely going from being employed to setting up my own business. I say my biggest weakness probably is that, and I think with many mums in business, is having the confidence in myself, but also having the time to work on my own business. I don't prioritise that. I prioritise everybody else before I prioritise myself. I'm actually now working with Thrive Beyond Coaching, which I should have done sooner. We all see it as a financial constraint, but actually it's been brilliant for me, because I have now worked out that one of my weaknesses is I do not make time for myself, however many hours a week it needs to be, for my own marketing, for my own business plan. But I've got my head around that now, and I'm working with Rachel, who's been amazing in just planning things out for me and making me see things in a much more strategic way. So, I've not worked, apart from a social media strategy, I've never worked on that sort of strategic side before of a business. I've been the one, out on the front, really, writing things and doing the content and all that sort of thing. So that's been a real eye-opener for me. And I'm taking the right steps now, and I'm making sure that, and I guess for me it was leaving a paid job where I got paid for the 12 hours I went into the office. This is a very different thing. It's, you have to bill not only for that hours that you're doing, but also the bits that you're not getting paid for the marketing that you do, for your own business strategy, for all that. So there's lots of what I see as unpaid work, but I'm now getting my head around that actually it's not unpaid work. It is all about your business and how you promote yourself and what you offer people. So that's been a real challenge for me, but I think I'm getting there now.
And that's an interesting theme that I've seen run through pretty much all of these conversations, is figuring out not only the fact that we work in our businesses, but we also need to find time to work on our businesses too. Okay. So that's really fascinating.
But also I think, it's, you don't have to have everything set out from the beginning. I've now been doing this for a couple of years, and, you can always take a different direction. I think actually a lot of your knowledge comes from your mistake. A lot of knowledge comes from learning what you don't want to do, which then makes you go, oh, actually, this is what I want to do. But until you've done that and you think, actually, I didn't really like doing that, you can't then go, I'm going to focus on this now. So, I don't think, we all make mistakes. We're all human. Nobody really knows what they wanted to do. So let your business evolve and let it take the shape that you want it to, and but make sure you love it. That's the thing, isn't it? We all want to make it work and sell, but unless you've got a passion for it and you decide that you like doing what you're doing, I don't think that comes across. And so it sells itself almost when you're passionate about something.
Absolutely. I like that a lot, Emma. When you look back at your career journey to date, what are you most proud of?
So tricky for me. I was never one, I am never one to blow my own trumpet. When we worked in TV, people would put themselves forward for awards, and I've just never been one for that. I guess it's a confidence thing. I've always known that I've been really good at my job, and I'm proud of that. But I never really wanted to sort of big myself up in any way. But I think just to go from, the things that I've talked about, the fact that I taught my way into getting on a postgrad course, the fact that I've worked on national TV, I've been on screen on national TV, I've been a journalist. I've done a lot, and I think you can't. I think you just go through day to day. We always look at the negatives, don't we? Why, the reasons why you left these places or the things you didn't do well. But actually, just looking at that on a piece of paper, a girl from Devon who went into her, do you remember when you used to have those career coaching sessions when you're, 13, 14, whatever age you are?
Very much so.
Yeah, and you go in and they say, what would you like to do, Emma? And I said, I want to be a TV presenter. And she paused for a minute and she laughed and she went, and what do you really want to do?
Oh, God.
And that has affected me for the rest of my life, I think. And I think that's, one of the major reasons why you kind of go, can I really do this? But if I could, I have no idea who that was. But yeah, if I could go back to her now and go, look what I have done. I'm really proud of my whole life, to be honest. I've battled to get where I wanted to do in the job that I wanted to do. I did appear on screen. Okay, I didn't become a TV presenter as such, but I reached the goal that I wanted to do. And now I'm doing what I want to do for my family as a single mum. I'm doing what I need to do to keep my family together, to have enough money each month, hopefully with something I love, and hopefully it will continue to grow and be a successful business.
Absolutely, Emma. And from my side of things, looking at your business from the outside, I think you're doing something else that career person would have never been able to understand throughout their life, which is you're now empowering other businesses to figure out how to tell their story to the world. And that's one of the biggest joys I get out of doing this podcast. And for that, I applaud you.
Thank you so much. That's lovely.
Emma, what's next for you and your business? Are there any projects in the pipeline that you can tell us about?
So yeah, I'm just trying to do more networking, but also trying to focus a lot more on my single parenting as well, and on the fact that I work with a lot of mums in business, and that is what I am. So I've actually just joined a couple of groups. One is the All by Mama Network. And I'm really pleased to say that I'm going to actually be hosting a Kingston meetup for them. They want to expand, and as a mum in business that works from home, it's so important to get out and talk to people. That thing is I really miss, that I don't work in a team anymore. I used to sit there when I was at ITV and, oh, what do you think about that? Or even how do you spell that? Or what's a different way of saying this? You just shouted things out, don't you? You don't have that. And especially as a single mum, I don't even have anyone to talk about that to in the evening. Yeah. So to get out and meet up with other mums in business, to network, to just chat, just to have a coffee, whatever it is. So that's really exciting. So I'm doing that in Kingston. And I'm also just joining the Single Mums in Business Network as well, where I'm hopefully going to do the same thing. Because as I said, I just think for single mums, even more so, it's even more empowering to meet single parents, but also to just have somebody to talk about that gets it and gets why you talk 10 to the dozen, because actually you haven't seen another adult for ages.
Absolutely.
So there are two things that are completely not really to do with my business, but actually, is in my target market, I guess, and also just helping other people in that area and meeting like-minded people.
Exciting times ahead.
Yeah. Definitely.
Excellent. Emma, as we start to wrap up, I'd like to ask you a few quick fire questions that our listeners are always interested in.
Oh, okay.
So what do you do to relax outside of the office?
That's a really good question, and probably not enough. But I am a member of Singing It Back, which is a community choir in North Kingston, which I love. And that is my 2 hours a week where I somehow manage to get out of the house once the babysitter arrives, and I just have 2 weeks of completely switch off time. Like, I love singing, I love music anyway, but it's just great. You don't think about anything else. You literally switch off. Halfway through, we have a cup of tea with our our friends in the group, but it's just brilliant. I absolutely love it. It's really, really good. So that's my one thing that I do. And every other weekend, the girls go with their dad. And I now see, whereas I used to see this as an awful thing, 3 years into being a single mum, I now see this as an actually amazing thing that my children go and spend some time with their dad every other weekend, and every other weekend I have a free weekend. I would much rather be with my children, but I definitely need that time, and it's become me time, whether it's seeing my friends or just relaxing, going for a swim or a walk or anything. So yeah, I definitely rely on that every other weekend. Chill out.
Are there any books that you've read recently that you'd recommend to our listeners?
On a sort of parenting front, I've been reading, now I need to get this title right. The Book You Wish Your Parents Had Read and the Children Would Be Glad You Have, by Emma Peries, which is amazing. It's quite deep and it's quite a lot. It's great on a parenting front if you want to have, be mindful of how you're bringing up your children. And I've just read, I always read before I go to bed just to switch off, so I need to have something to switch off. I've just read, which sounds awful, doesn't it, but My Sister, the Serial Killer, but it was a great read. And I probably can't pronounce her name, which is awful, and I can't remember her name. But yeah, I really enjoyed that. It was just a nice, although it was not the lightest subject matter, it was just a really easy, powerful read.
Absolutely. Are there any movies or TV shows that you've recently watched that you'd recommend to our listeners?
Oh, well, I've been really enjoying Cold Feet, back again. That always takes you back. So yeah, I've been enjoying that. I must admit, I don't watch a great deal of television because by the time I've put the kids to bed, and I tend to be watching things like The Lion King at the weekends, or family movies come and ask me. But adult television, I don't really get a chance to watch.
We're kindred spirits on that front there, Emma. Finally, absolutely. Finally, where can people go to find out more about you and your business?
Well, you can. My website is actually still being worked on while I figure out all my offerings for the year. But that's www.digitalmother.co.uk. But my most active social page is definitely Instagram. I'm digital.mother. So yeah, come and connect with me there. It'd be great to see you. And I try and do as much Chamber of Commerce networking as well. So hopefully see people at the Wych Elm for networking. And one of the meetups, if you can come and join it, if you're a mum in business.
And for the benefit of our listeners, I'll make sure that I link up to those resources on the show notes.
Brilliant.
Emma, thank you for joining us here on the Inside Kingston podcast. It's been a pleasure getting to know your story.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for having me and for what you do for Kingston too.
Thank you.
That wraps up another episode of the Inside Kingston podcast. Make sure to check out our guests' website, pay them a visit, and help spread the word about what they're doing. If you have any questions or know someone who should be a guest on the show, please feel free to get in touch. I would also love it if you could go to iTunes and leave us a review and a 5-star rating. We work hard to bring on some great guests, and getting a review from you is one way to help the podcast rate well on iTunes so that others can find and enjoy the show too. Thanks for listening.